Oh boy, I can't believe I'm going to try to sum up Foucault in a hot second. But since I'm doing this late because of technical difficulties, I'm working to keep it short and sweet. Okay, go. Foucault is the center of some debate, which is not a bad thing, but you should know before we go any further that while his ideas are undeniably brilliant, there is an argument that he's kind of a crap historian. I suppose what I most want you to understand about Foucault is this. Whether you know it or not, there are boundaries on your imagination. We have some strategies for dealing with this. In less serious circumstances, we use conceptual metaphors. Infinity operates differently in mathematics than it does as a concept, but the same symbol allows us to conceive or think we can conceive infinity. But those same conceptual metaphors also hinder us. If one is not a man and one is not a woman, then what is one? One is a person. That's pretty much always the answer. We don't have to understand people to recognize their humanity. But knowing a thing and living the thing are not the same. If we cannot understand how you are, then we often argue that who you are is not legitimate. We do a lot of mental gymnastics to justify this kind of cognitive dissonance, even going so far as to use a text to justify our beliefs when that same text contradicts that very justification. From a social justice standpoint, these moments are worth considering because effecting change works best when you can help people see each other's humanity. So if I'm outside your conception of human, and everything beyond this boundary is simply impossible, then I need you to at least accept me as real, even if you can't understand me. Foucault's project is to understand how these boundaries came into existence rather than the adjustment of said boundaries specifically. And this matters a lot when we get into social constructivism. I'm not much of an essentialist, but as with most things in life, what we construct is built a little bit on reality, and a little bit on imagination, and a lot on capitalism. Ultimately, the boundaries get set by those in power, and reconfiguring those boundaries is part and parcel of the social justice fight. And let's go back to this one again. So once again, we're back to agency. Connecting this to Freire, you can see how the banking concept of education sets the discursive boundaries according to the appropriate banked knowledge. But those boundaries also fall along lines of power, so what's true becomes tangled up with what we can accept. As Belzy says, ideology secures the system by consent. It is not a conspiracy. Its reaffirmation is not deliberate. There's no villain in the tower, there's meaning-making and our increasing cultural dismissal of it as a soft skill, as artsy-fartsy, as elitist. But if we can't understand the words, we can't rewrite the story. And so we return to everyone's favorite academic jargon, epistemology, or theory of knowledge. Our theory of gravity gives us understanding of not only the existence of gravity, but how to predict its intensity given the surrounding factors. It also allows us to better understand and react to its effects on us. Foucault undertook a similar process, but he tried to do it with knowledge. Knowledge is a human construct. Yes, things exist whether we exist to quantify them, but our understanding of how they exist is purely based in human perception and its limitations. So like our need to conceive of time as a two-dimensional line, death as a form of sleep, and real-life problems in terms of heroes and villains, we can only ever understand things in terms of what we already know. You can tell me you see the color spiky, but that doesn't mean anything unless you give me a frame of reference, like the color literally causes pain in my eyes when I look at it, for example. So Foucault lays the foundation for understanding not how systems get built, but how they perpetuate. To quote your post-structuralism reading, meaning is not at our disposal. We learn our native language, and in the process learn to invoke the meanings other people use. Language transmits the knowledges and values that constitute a culture. To reproduce existing meanings exactly is also to reaffirm the knowledges our culture takes for granted and the values that precede us, the norms. In other words, unless we all do this very hard, very complicated, and very unpleasant work, the best we can hope for is to be different, just like everybody else. I love you, Dr. Seuss, but we can't all stand out, or we've just moved where the median was located. No child left behind. So we learn from Alsard how the way we construct knowledge directly affects our ability to understand and interpret information. We learn from Freire that the education as an institution is used in service of that construct and denies us the practice and guidance we need to understand the conditions of our own existence. We learn from Belzy that the language we have access to, the words we have, the words we can create, and the words we understand correspond to the meanings we are able to produce. If knowledge means fact, and fact means precise, and precise means you can recite a specific answer, then we either need to redefine knowledge or create new words that mean something different in order to build/rebuild new meanings. And now, hopefully, we've learned from Foucault that each of these readings is another way to conceptualize our boundaries. What we can conceive, what we can believe, what we can think. This matters because the system will resist all attempts at structural change, supplying instead the illusion of change. You have to understand the why if you're going to understand that what's true was the biggest illusion all along.